Okay, so now let's try to understand how this learning rate will affect how fast your network will converge or whether it will converge or not. So if you use like a very small learning rate, then what's going to happen is if you look at this equation, you will take very, very small steps, right? It will control like the gradient value. So then it's going to go very slow, like in very, very small steps. So it will take a lot of time. So if you increase the learning rate, so this is a curve showing like how it will affect, right? So these steps like is going to be controlled by this learning rate. Now, if you increase your learning rate, then what may happen, you might overshoot like your minima, right? If let's say you're using, if starting from this point to this point, it's let's say 10 units. If you use a learning rate of 20, then this is going to jump like from this location to this location, right? And then again, it will go away. So if you use like a very high learning rate, and again, this is showing the loss curve, which we discussed in the previous slide. X-axis is like the iteration or epoch as you're training a network. Y-axis is showing the loss value. Let's say this is the starting point, which was a random initialization. And these are showing like different variations of how your training loss will look like, or how your network will converge if you train using gradient descent. Okay. So the yellow curve, if you look at this kind of curve you will see when your learning rate is too high. Okay, so what's happening here is you're starting from this point and it's actually going close, but it will just cross this value. It won't go to this point because the learning rate is too high. And it will just keep jumping and eventually it will go out. So your loss is actually increasing. Okay, because it will rise like this level after some time. Then let's look at the other extreme, which is low learning rate. In this case, it will move very slowly, but eventually it will come to this point, right? So you can see like this is like the loss is reducing very gradually, but eventually it's going in that direction. Okay, so the other is the green one. And again, this is kind of a high learning rate because what's happening here is it converges pretty fast, but then stays there. It's not moving at all. And the idea is, let's say you start from this location, you come to this point, then let's say you come to this point, then you just keep jumping here. So your loss is actually never going down because the learning rate is too high. It doesn't know how to take smaller steps. It will just keep jumping here. And that's the stagnant point here. Okay. And red is something which is like the optimal learning rate. It's increasing fast and then it's actually converging to a point. And again, these are all hypothetical scenarios. In real training, you will see like curves which I showed you in the previous slide, right? That's like more realistic, but this is a general trend which you should look for. Okay, so that was about learning curve. That will be useful for you when you train your networks. And as we discussed earlier, you have like certain set of hyperparameters in your network, and one of them is learning rate, which is very, very important. So by visualizing or analyzing those these loss curves, it tells you like whether your learning rate is correct or not, and that helps you set that hyperparameter to some extent.